The following readings are from the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita. Each week we read from both scriptures as prescribed by Yogananda ji and his Guru Sri Yukteswar ji, who was guided by Babaji to compare the two scriptures to show the same underlying truths between them. This week's reading is titled, The Best Way to Worship. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. In chapter 4 of the Gospel of St. John, the woman of Samaria asks Jesus, "Where is the best place to worship?" This question might be expanded to include, what is the best church? What is the best religion? Is it important to go on pilgrimage to holy shrines? What is the best ritual? What is the best mantra or prayer? Jesus cut across all such questioning with his reply, "The hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshippers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth. For the Father seeketh such to worship him. God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth." It was not that outer considerations of place, church, ritual, etc. are irrelevant. Each person should find those practices and observances which are compatible to his own nature, one might say to his own vibrations. Not everyone's natural path is the same. God sends different religions into the world to satisfy different human needs. The overarching concern, however, considering that the goal is to find God, is to include in one's worship daily inner communion with the Lord. God is silence. He must be sought, therefore, in inner silence. God is absolute love. He must be sought, therefore, in the silence of love. God is spirit, and thus immaterial. He must be sought, above all, in the expanding peace of deep meditation. Thus the Bhagavad Gita states in the 6th chapter, "Sequestered should he sit, steadfastly meditating, solitary, his thoughts controlled, his passions laid away, from every craving for possession freed." Wherever you are, whatever your outward beliefs and observances, seek God in the silence of your own soul. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
I'd like to begin with a reading from Whispers from Eternity by Paramahansa Yogananda, a book of prayer poems. This one is entitled A Bouquet of All Loves of God. O God, my Father, teach me to make a bouquet of the variously hued flowers of filial, conjugal, friendly, parental, and guru-disciple love, and to lay it reverently upon the altar of my heart, where Thou reignest supreme. If I am unable to tie all those flowers in one bouquet, I will pluck the rarest rose of love, growing in the garden of my devotion, and lay that one flower at Thy feet. Oh, wilt Thou receive it? Speaking of devotion, I just have to say how beautiful the flowers are and how much they add to the altar. So thank you all who bring the flowers, and thank you to all who have brought flowers in the past and also who will bring them in the future. Hint, hint. It's nice to have just the flowers. They immediately touch our hearts, and we need that, especially during times of stress or times of dryness. Remember, the heat outside just sort of wears not only on us, but it wears on everyone. And so you find people sort of walking around with kind of grim looks of endurance on their face. Just, when is the rain coming? And we almost had some rain because we had that cyclone, but then sort of pulling rain in, but then it decided to get huge and go to Calcutta. We should keep Calcutta in your prayers, because it's now a severe cyclone. And, in a way we sort of sent it to them, not intentionally. It started here and went there. So, but do keep, our Ananda members, but all of our spiritual family and everyone else there in your prayers. They've had to shut down the airport, things like this we know well, or when we've had to do it. So just that everybody be safe, most importantly. It is so helpful to have these readings, the rays of the one light, going through the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita each week, because it's not only that the week's teaching, but it's actually, of course, a whole continuous teaching, starting from January, the first Sunday, where we begin with the first reading. Usually we don't, because of Master's birthday also, we end up speaking more about him. But still, it gives us a whole progression. In the beginning, in January, the readings are about in the beginning, the nature of the creation of this universe or this reality, and so on. And so let's start at the beginning. And then as we get now more into this part of the year, Swamiji includes sort of, you could say, teachings about how we live on the spiritual path and answering very common questions that come up in religion. Swamiji or spirituality. Swamiji said that one of the things he loved most about Master, in terms of Master's teachings, was that how he Master addressed so many of the common philosophical questions or even contradictions, and was able to just clearly and simply resolve them all, showing how there wasn't a contradiction between this master and so on. That was part of a part of Master's mission, as he said, the interpretation of the scriptures. He focused primarily on the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita, and somebody asked him once, "You say this is the church of all religions, but you focus primarily on the Bible, meaning Christianity, and the Bhagavad Gita. If you want to say Hinduism, we would more properly say Sanatana Dharma, but still fine. But why just these two?" And Master could have given many explanations, and at other times he did. He said, if you show that two are the same, by extension you can see that all are the same. And so, but you can only dive deeply into two, meaningfully. And but at that time, when the person asked him, he said, that was the will of Babaji. I'm just acting under orders. And so it's nice that Prasanna read that first part at the beginning to always remind us that we follow this satsang outline because Swamiji gave it to us. And Swamiji gave it to us because it was following the outline of Master's Sunday satsang, Sunday services. And Master followed that outline because of Sri Yukteswar's teaching and explanation to him, and in the holy science of comparing these two scriptures. And Sri Yukteswar wrote that book because Babaji said so. And so it really all comes from there. And it was sweet, Master's relationship with Babaji. It's not something that we even fully understand. He said to Swamiji once, he said, in my past life, Babaji was my guru, directly. And he said, that's why and he said, Babaji was Krishna, I was Arjuna. He said, that's why I'm so close to Babaji. And Swamiji wondered, why did he say that's why I'm so close? When you say that's why I'm so close, it's sort of assumed that you're close, and you're saying I'm so close as if the other person knows that already. They used to say, that's why I'm so happy. Someone says, are you happy? Oh, but yeah, you don't look happy. So, no. But when you say, this happened and that's why I'm so happy, you go, oh yeah, that's why you're so happy. Okay, yeah, I get it. Again, it's a given already that you're close. So to say so close, he wondered about what that meant. And also he remembered that that Babaji had said to Master, I can't be with you right now. And Master was ready to go for America. And Babaji came to him, and then Babaji left and said, don't follow me, you will not be able to. And Master, of course, tried, but his feet were stuck to the floor. But he said, I'll not see you now, I'll see you another time. And then again, he went to the Kumbh Mela wanting to meet Babaji, and I think it was Keshavananda ji said, Babaji has given me a message that he will not, he said, tell Yogananda I will not meet him now, but at another time. So this other time, when was the other time going to be? And Swamiji said once Master was sitting with them all, and he had been cooking for them. And he said it was always wonderful to eat Master's food. Master would say, I just tasted at the spiritual eye. I mean, it wasn't that he took a spoon and held it up here, but he just used his intuition to get the flavors just right. And so he went into the kitchen, and he was there for quite some time. And Swamiji said when he came out, he just looked completely radiant. Of course, Master would always look radiant, but this was on a whole new level. And Swamiji couldn't help it, and he said, he looked at Master inquiringly, like, Sir. And Master said, I finally perfected the recipe. And Swamiji thought, I don't think it was just the recipe. I think he wondered if he had met Babaji or something, because it was just too much. But Master didn't speak of it. So another time when Master was scolding one of the disciples, and he had sat her down in her room, and he was telling her the things that she needed to correct in herself, and she was just not very open at the moment. And so when he went out and closed the door, she started praying to Babaji. And he opened the door and came back in and said, no fair going over my head. You can't complain to the boss. It's not fair. But we can then perhaps, sometimes people will misunderstand in the sense to think that, Babaji is the Mahavatar CEO, and then he has these maybe executive directors or something, the other avatars, and he guides them all, and they say, yes, sir. They're all one with God. And you say, yes, but Babaji is Mahavatar, and Sri Yukteswarji wrote that his spiritual state is beyond human understanding. What does that mean? It means it's beyond human understanding. It means we're not going to understand it. Whatever I say, it's because of the interplexus of the Maha. It doesn't mean anything. It's nothing. It's fine. Some things we just have to say, I bow. But remember, they're all one with God. And the avatars are fully liberated, meaning they have gotten over the ego, they're not creating new karma, and they've gotten over all past karma too. This is the state of param mukti, when you get rid of all your past karma too. Our first step is what? Samadhi, yes. To be a free soul, yes. As the monks put it once at Ananda, they said in the early days, every meditation we were praying, ecstasy, ecstasy, ecstasy. And he said, now we're trying to make it through the day thinking good thoughts. Just trying to think good thoughts. Of course, if you make it through the day thinking good thoughts, it brings the ecstasy in time. But it's not that they watered down their ambition, but it became more tempered, more strong, more be in it for the long rhythm. When I first came to Ananda, people were always saying that. When I was, what about this? And what about that? And can we do this? They would say, think in terms of long rhythms, long rhythms. End of it. End the long rhythm. Why long? And, what's this long part? Can we say short? Just desperate to go fast to get there. And it's important but you have to have that ambition, but you have to do what works. You don't want to burn yourself out. And how do you know if you're going to burn yourself? Because afterwards, what's that burning? Wherever I go, I smell burning. Oh, it's me. And then you sort of flop over on the side of the road, and somebody comes and hoses you off, and then you kind of get back together, and then get yourself together, and then go on again. And so, don't worry about that. It's on the path as we grow. It isn't that we no longer fall or trip. That's not the strength that we develop. It's that we get up more quickly. And we dust ourselves off and say, who cares, never mind, go on. I remember seeing somebody who was being challenged to do some physical thing and they couldn't do it well. And they had this coach who was very strict and very sort of tough and all this. And so, and they tried on their first attempt to do it, and they lost their balance and fell, and then they were just like this. And he just said, look, you're not going to be good at everything. You're not going to be perfect at everything. I mean, it's such a correct thing to say. It's such a balanced thing to say. If we think it's our job to be correct and perfect at everything, well, my God, it's just silly. And why put that burden on ourselves? And what the coach said later was, I'm also looking for people who can bounce back after failure, who can just say, never mind, and go on, rather than just hanging on to this thing. I can't believe I did that. We have to just get over it. If we're really sad that we did something wrong, let's prove it by not doing it again, or by apologizing, or by learning our lesson. But that resilience will help you very much on the spiritual path. It's not our job to know and do and be everything. It's God's job. And it's our job to get to Him and to trust Him. Again, as I was saying to some people the other day, the earth is rotating whether we want it to or not. It's not as if every morning that Charmilla has to get up and give it a good spin, and the rest of us are waiting. You don't have to worry about things like that. We sometimes can take too much responsibility onto ourselves. And so just get to God, and from God, with God, everything will make sense. And it's not as if, okay, fine, get to God, so in 100,000 meditations I will finally get there, and then. No, it gets better and better all along the way. As one master put it, as you approach the sea, first you may smell the salt in the air, or you see the seagulls, the seabirds. As you get closer, you might see some sand on the road. Imagine if the sea is just over a hill so you can't see it. You start to hear the ocean. As you approach God, you will get more and more, and you do. I mean, how do you know? Because you already have. Feeling that calmness, feeling that peace, feeling that connection. Also with other devotees. It's just so important, as I was mentioning at a ceremony last weekend, that we have to spend a lot of our time during the day saying, I love God and that's not crazy. Because so often we see people will say, but that is crazy, what a waste. But as Master said, you will not be bored with God. He is the most interesting thing in this universe. He is the universe. He's beyond the universe. But more than that, the things that we seek and that the things we hope to get from those goals, really, God, it's really God. I would like this because it will give me peace, but God is peace. I would like this because then I will get more love, but God is love. I will feel safe. God is that security. You see, I don't mean God is everything, so He cheats, whatever you want. I want Meisterpak. That is God also. Okay, fine. Sure, maybe on the molecular level. But the point is that what we're really seeking is God. Because if we just seek it superficially, if we just seek it materially or even psychologically, we find that it's unsatisfying. As one saint said, speaking to God, he wrote, Thou hast made us for Thyself, and our hearts are restless until they find their rest in Thee. And that's really what it is. That completion, that fulfillment, that sense of connection is always and ultimately and finally only in God. As it says in the autobiography of a yogi, a love universal a love singular because omnipresent. And you what does that mean? Well, it means God is all there is. So if you love God, you love only God, but God is everything. So you love everything also. And finding that love, anyway, all you need is a taste of it and to get you hooked. And then, as we are all hooked, because you find this works and this is dependable, and let me just keep moving towards that. It's really beautiful to behold, and it's really nice to have this topic of what is the best way to worship, because we all sort of instinctively know that if someone is open-hearted, if someone is kind, if someone is patient, that these are godly qualities. If someone is generous, that we can feel it. Even people who are very hard-nosed about such things, that as long as it's money, that's what I'm interested in. Otherwise, don't waste my time. But even in that, they're seeking what from the money? Security, maybe power, maybe fame, maybe freedom to fulfill all their desires, which will give them pleasure, which is ultimately joy. You see, it all ends up at the same place. Sometimes we get hard lessons that make us say, okay, I'm not in control. There was a man who, which many of you have read of in the Lessons in Discipleship book, because he was living in Delhi and he met Swamiji, and his daughter was a devotee, but he was very much not. He was on the board of several companies, and I don't know if he had them all displayed on his shirt, but he certainly wanted you to know that I am on the board of this company. I am more than the CEO. I am the one who makes the CEO. And so on. And so he met Swamiji, and he challengingly asked him, do you think I need a guru? And Swamiji said, no, you don't need a guru. And he was disarmed, like, oh, that's in fact what I thought. And so he said, until you want God, you don't need a guru. Not sure if the man put it together. Swamiji added later, and until that time, go on being your own guru. And again, of course, we can chuckle, but we have to look at also, when do we apply that to ourselves? For me, I notice I will get an intuition which is very quiet, like you might need to do this instead of your plan, and I will say, I already have the plan, thank you very much. And it's a good plan, and we're going to follow it. And I should have done what that voice said, but I had already made up my mind, and why? I mean, was it going to be some big problem for me to change direction? The only reason I was holding to that direction was because I was already going that way. It's just a stupid thing to do. I mean, imagine driving a car that way. Crash into the house. The person comes out and says, say, I chose this direction and I had to go until the end. Sorry. I mean, stupid. So change direction as needed. So whenever we're asserting, no, this is what I think, to ourselves even, silently, let's say, I'm more interested in truth than in my own opinion. I'm more interested in what will work than whatever thoughts I've cooked up before now. And if that doesn't make sense, just meditate, do Kriya, and it solves everything. Again, it puts us back together and gives us the truth. Even if we don't get any information, we get straightened out. We get happier, we get calmer, and that's really what this is all about anyway. As Prasanna was saying, God is silence, and we must approach Him in silence. We must worship Him in silence. And that silence is not just like you might imagine. Silence. It's pretty boring. Is there anything to listen to in the silence? You know, it's silent calmness. It's silent joy. You notice how at a restaurant, at a table, if there's a table of people there and they're all talking, blah, 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 this and that, and finally the food comes, silence. Very, very quiet. So in the same way, it's that kind of silence, except even deeper, that we are feeding on God's joy. And so there's no need to busy ourselves, our mouths, in this case of eating. We don't want to waste any energy in talking. In this, our mind doesn't need to go anywhere else. It is satisfied. And it comes. And the surprising thing is that if you have a good period, which we all have, and then you go through a difficult period of meditation, of trying your sadhanas, you're struggling with it, which everybody goes through also, both kinds of periods. As you start to really push and try to get back into it, or even after a 5-minute meditation, suddenly you may feel very still, very deep, like you had during the good period. And it's kind of like, how could that be? That used to come after 90 minutes, and it's coming after 5. And it's because we have this sense, like if you stop using your muscles and they kind of aren't as strong anymore, then you have to take time to build them up again. And that it should just take time to build up this meditative muscle, and it doesn't. You just go right back to where you were, or this gift of grace and love and encouragement comes just like that, because of our effort to open up. And we realize then that it's there the whole time. It's been there the whole time. We just needed to open ourselves to it. So again, as I was saying, these qualities of God, peace, generosity, kindness, we have this sense of them being the noblest or the best of human qualities, you could say, then elevated to the divine level. But we have to understand them in whatever ways we can, which is on the human level also. And it becomes less important that, okay, does someone follow this particular ritual or that particular ritual? It's not that the rituals are unimportant, and it's not that the person following it should think it's unimportant. It's just that whether it's this exact one or that exact one matters less than that they're worshipping. And we become much more broad, have a broader sympathy, as we read, those of broad sympathies. We can relate. We can be open. We can appreciate that in even other religions, other practices. There's a story that's often told in this regard of extremism in the other way, which I've told often, Swamiji told it, Master told it, of the saint who loved Vishnu and hated Shiva. And so I've forgotten his name in Hindi, but basically it translates to bell ears, because he hung little bells on his ears, because whenever he would go into town, the children, knowing he hated Shiva, would follow him around going, Shiva, 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 Shiva. He would go, stop it, stop it, stop it. And he would ring the bells so he couldn't hear that name. And I mean, how did he pay for things and just thanks, I don't know how he did it. But one day, I don't know if Shiva and Vishnu got together and said, should we help him? But they decided to help him, and the murti of Vishnu that he always worshipped, half of it changed into Shiva. And I always ask, is this Ardhana Ishwar? And you always say, no, it's not. That's the other one. But then I ask, what is it? And does half Shiva, half Vishnu? What's the name? Ardhanarishwar. That's right. Oh, that's Shiva Parvati? Okay, so this is Shiva Vishnu.
Half Shiva, half Parvati is only Ardhanarishwar.
Very good, which is not what I mean. Yeah. Half Shiva, half Vishnu. That's what I always say, and I'm always wrong each time. You'd think I'd do some research before. Okay. Thankfully, you're not all shouting it out at once, so I don't feel as embarrassed, but still. Yeah, it's that one. And so at the time, this bell ears guy was doing art, was offering incense. And so as he was doing the incense, and then he saw the Shiva side, he closed the Shiva nostril so it would not get the benefit of the incense. And God said, there's just no hope for you. So, it's just like any time we encounter that where somebody's saying, this is whatever, just be flexible, be patient. As I've said before, if you may not be able to convince them of anything because they may not be listening, if it gets too tiresome, just feed them something, because at least when they're eating, they can't talk, and you'll get a little break from it all. But the thing is, we have to look for that in ourselves. If we get too rigid about something, that it should not be this, it should be that, remember, are we just closing the nostril? Rather than saying, look, live and let live. Maybe this person even going in the wrong direction is how they will learn. How have I learned so many of my lessons? It's usually by first heading off in the wrong direction and hitting that wall and saying, that didn't work. So again, being generous, being accepting, being supportive. And if we can't, we can say, last I checked, I am not wearing the universe's policeman outfit. I am not the cosmic cop that is supposed to make sure that everybody's following the rules, and if not, send them to jail. That job is done by Divine Mother, and she knows better. So let her be the policeman. And meanwhile, let us just mind our own business. You can imagine trying to arrest somebody, and then a real policeman comes, and I wasn't doing anything. You don't want to get in real trouble. So just, we have to let that be. Sometimes, of course, we have to intervene, but those times are usually rarer than we think. And so not to as I said, be too rigid about anything, and to try to find, and if somebody does something very different from us, even spiritually, trying to find the connection, trying to find the common ground. If nothing else, you love God, or trying to find God, so am I. Isn't that beautiful? And if sometimes we also find that we move away from some of the rituals that we used to do because we get more out of a different kind of practice, you could say. It's never a rejection. And of course, Master did puja all the time when he wanted to. And again, we should never reject something that has helped us. And we should never reject something that's helping others. A friend of ours from Ananda was being interviewed on a TV show, or a radio show, anyway, one of the two, about her spiritual path, which was very sort of unusual in America. And this man himself was a fundamentalist Christian. And so it was, as a fundamentalist, anything means this is the only way and anything else is wrong kind of an attitude. And so he was really challenging her and saying, what about this and what about that? And, I don't think so. And how can you believe it? But then during the commercial break, when they were off the air temporarily, he was speaking to her very normally. And he confessed that he was into this religion very deeply. But before that, he had been into drugs and alcohol and had a very just sort of wasted life. And it was the spirituality or the religion that got him to clean his act up. And so then they came back, and he again challenged her about her beliefs. And she felt torn, because on the one hand, she could poke holes in his belief. She could challenge him right back, and perhaps, in a way that he might not be able to answer. But she, out of compassion and appreciation for, look, whatever he believes, it's helped him. So she didn't want to undermine that. And at the same time, she didn't want to just say, well, sure, that's fine, because she was, after all, speaking for yoga and meditation. And she said basically that, your beliefs do not allow for the correctness of mine, but my beliefs do allow for the correctness of yours. And that made him quiet. And it's just helpful again to respect people's freedom also, to be where they are, do what they need, but we also do what we need, even if our freedom is not respected. Even if people say, what freedom? You don't have any freedom. You belong to me. No, we can't live that way. I was seeing Priya Darshini, and she reminded me of how she said that before the spiritual path, she was living just like a robot, having to just wake up early, do all the chores, travel really far, go to the work, come back, do all the food, do all the chores. She had help. Her husband is here. He's a wonderful man. It's not like that. But just the sheer hours of travel alone just would kill anybody's day. And like she's just said, it's a perfect expression. Many of us feel that way. I'm just living like a robot. What is the point? What is the purpose? And because our hearts need more than that. Everybody's heart needs more than that. A meaning, a reason. And so the thing then to remember is, just as we sang in that song, Walk Like a Man, that we do what we need to do. That song is such a teaching that let come who will. If other people want to come with you, great. But if they all turn home, your soul knows the answer. Go on alone. You have to do what you think is right. You won't have any peace otherwise. It'll always be nagging, gnawing at us. There was a man when I was at MIT who was from Chennai, and when he heard that I was interested in yoga and meditation, he decided to sit me down and set me straight. Because he was, of course, being Indian, he was, a Mahavatar himself, because he had an Indian passport, and he knew all of these teachings of India that this poor foreigner didn't know anything about. And I said, well, I'm half Indian. He said, that doesn't count. So I guess in his mind he rounded down. But in any case, so I started debating with him in a lively way, and he was saying, but all of these things are just stories, and none of it is real. And so, you can't read these things and think that they're actually true. Almost as if to say, that's just for children. And I don't know how we got on the subject, but I was saying I really am drawn to yoga and these yoga things. I knew that if I acted tense or if I got argumentative, he would say, see, how is your yoga working for you? So and luckily he wasn't too disrespectful that I got too offended. But I said they even say that some yogis have such control over their digestion that if they eat one wrong thing, they're able to produce it out to then not have to be bothered by it. This is something we teach in level 6. I'm just kidding. But Master said Rajarshi had that ability, so that's interesting. His most advanced disciple. Anyway, I don't know why I thought that would somehow attract him. But anyway, when I told him that, he said, I can see you are a true believer. And at the end of it, he finally concluded that he was wasting his time, which was my goal. He said, well, I think at this point, even if you're wrong, you're just going to have to find out on your own that you're wrong. And I was happy with that, because he was right. Could I say, I know I'm right? I know everything I believe, everything I've heard is right. Until I've experienced it, I can't say that. I can say, I think it's right, it makes sense to me. As I've moved in this direction, it has been working for me, just as advertised. You're supposed to get more peace. I feel more peace. You're supposed to be happy. I feel happier. You're supposed to have meaning in your life. I felt it. But I couldn't say, I know God, I've seen God, I know what all these things are. I couldn't. And yet, what I could say very confidently is it's right for me to try. It's right for me to find out for myself. And I would say I was going to find out if I was right. He was saying you'll find out that you're wrong. But it amounts to the same thing. Because either I am right or I am wrong. So I find out the truth is really what he was saying. So anyway, it's, as I said, don't really be bothered by that. Because as the next line in the song says, and walk like a man, what if men cry, your dream is not our own? Your soul knows the answer, go on alone. That's all people are saying. When they say you're wrong, they're saying because what you do is not something I want to do, so therefore it's wrong. I mean, just imagine. You're sitting down to the breakfast table or at the breakfast restaurant, and the waiter comes and, your friend says, I'll have idli sambar. And then you say, I'll have Mysore masala dosa. And imagine your friend says, wrong! You say, what? You can only have idli sambar. It is the only proper breakfast. It's like, okay, maybe iniki, but nalaki, it's, something else. Poha or something. I mean, it's just, there's no such thing as right and wrong in that regard. But what's right for me? What suits me? So people are just inflicting their opinions. Why would they do that when you're on the spiritual path? Because our opinion sometimes, what we're choosing to do is a challenge to people. I would like to live a better life. I would like to be kinder. I would like to be patient. Get out of my face. Get away from me. Because you are reminding me that I should do that too, and ada vendam. You see, it's a challenge. Don't try to act better than I am. Don't try to be better than I am. And that is important. We should not try to feel. We should feel. I'm not trying to be better than anybody. I'm trying to be better than myself. I'm trying to be a better version of myself. In time, most people will relax around that. And, sometimes it's days, weeks, and for some people I've been waiting decades. But they eventually come around. One man was very critical of a friend of ours at Ananda. She was meditating. He was always saying, what is this woo-woo stuff? And woo, always mocking her. And but then her husband had a severe injury and was in the hospital, then came home but couldn't walk at first because of the injury. And she had to take constant care of him. And this man, who was her uncle, just watched her day in and day out take care of him. And he said, Kay, you just keep doing what you're doing with this meditation stuff, because I could not imagine being able to do what you're doing. And, so go for it. So usually people in time will come. I took this story a little too far because I thought of that. There was a man, my first trip to Ananda village, there was a shuttle service because it's some far away from the airport, some distance from the airport, that you could, it's not like I could call it, hey, Jyotish and Devi, could you pick me up? I mean, no way. I mean, I barely knew them. So there was a service. It was called the Foothills Flyer, and it's a man with a van. And he, I figured myself and all the others would pour into the van. I was alone to go up to Ananda village and so on. And then he was driving and telling me about his life, and he was kind of grumpy and this and that. But I was going to Ananda village. I was so happy. And then he said, you're going to this Ananda place. I take a lot of people up there. And all I can say is, I don't know what y'all do up there, but nicest people I ever met are always going to that place. And at this point in my life, I would have said, oh, how wonderful. But I said, yes, well, then maybe you'd like to come find out for yourself. No. Thank you, I'm fine. And so, again, just do what you do. Be strong in that. Meet people where they are. Try to give them something that will appeal to them. And meanwhile, you go on alone. You don't have to go on alone. Or if you are alone, just come to CIT Nagar and then you're not alone. And again, thank you all for coming. We say that a lot. But again, it really matters to us because we love to do this together. Where lovers of God are gathered, it gives so much help, so much energy, so much blessing and courage. And it sort of fills our gas tank up, as Prem was saying the other day. So then we can charge back and face another week of this stuff, this life. So I would, the last line of that is also that song is make rich the soil, meaning prepare, and prepare yourself, prepare your life, do whatever preparation is needed. But once the seed is sown, once the seed is planted, seek freedom, don't linger, go on alone. Once you have your meditation techniques, once you have your spiritual family, once you have your guru, the seed is planted. You don't need to look left and right anymore, as Master said. Do not look left and right, meaning don't compare yourself to others. Don't worry about that. Just seek freedom. That's really what we're here for. That's what worshiping God means, is to be one with Him in that freedom, in that joy, in His love. God bless you.